You are listening to PastThink.com audiobook. Please like and subscribe, thank you. Chapter 31. While drunk Wusong beats Kong Liang, the elegant tiger releases Song Jiang. While the two men were fighting, Wusong suddenly made a feint, and his opponent lunged forward. Wusong stepped to one side avoiding the blow, and at the same moment brought down his sword, and cut off his opponent's head. He shouted, "You woman, inside there, come here. I will not kill you. I only want to ask you a few questions." The woman came forward and kneeling down saluted Wusong. "You need not salute me," said Wusong. "What is this place called? Who is this man?" The woman cried, "I am the daughter of old Zhang who lives at the foot of the hill. This temple is in our ancestral graveyard. I do not know where this man came from, but he came to our house and asked us to let him stay there for the night. He said that he was skilled in the arts of feng shui and had good knowledge of telling fortunes. My father and mother did not want him to stay with us, so they asked him to come to this temple and examine the spiritual nature of the surroundings. One day he saw me and so was unwilling to depart. He stayed here for 3 months and killed my parents, my brother, and my sister-in-law. He then coerced me to stay here with him. The boy here was kidnapped by him from some other place. These hills are the Wusong Ridge. This man thought that the land situation here was auspicious. He said his name was Wang, a Taoist priest, and gave himself the nickname, the Flying Centipede. Have you any relatives about here? I have several relatives, but none of them dared say anything to this man. Had he any money? Asked Wusong. Yes, he had accumulated about 200 taels of silver. You go and pack it up. I am going to burn this temple down. The girl asked Wusong whether he wanted to eat or drink. You can bring the food here, replied Wusong. Please come inside and dine there. I am afraid there may be other men who might plot to kill me. The girl said, I have only one head, so how dare I attempt to cheat you? Wusong followed the girl inside, and saw near the window a table loaded with food and wine. While he had drunk for a time, the girl brought in the silver, and offered it to Wusong. He would not accept it, and told the girl to take it for herself. The girl knelt, saluted, and taking the silver departed down the mountain. Wusong set the place on fire, and threw the 2 corpses in the flames. He then sheathed his swords, and followed the road across the mountain towards Qingzhou Prefecture. During the next 10 days he passed through many villages, hamlets, and towns, and noticed that the proclamation about himself was posted upon the walls. But on account of his disguise as a monk nobody suspected him. It was now the 11th lunar month, and the weather was getting quite cold. One day as he ascended a small ridge he saw in the distance a high mountain, which appeared to be steep and difficult to cross. After going about 2 li further he came to an inn. It was built under a cliff, and in front of the door was a pure mountain stream. Near the inn were a few houses. He entered and called for wine and meat. The innkeeper replied, I will not deceive you, Reverend, I have no meat left, and I have only plain vegetables and wine. The innkeeper brought a bowl of wine, and some cooked vegetables. Wusong had soon finished the wine, and asked for some more. On the road he had already had some wine, so when he had taken this he began to feel tipsy. He called out, Waiter, have you nothing else for me? If you have any meat left for your own family, please give me a part to eat, and I will pay you for it. The innkeeper laughed and said, Strange. You are a monk yet you ask for wine and meat. But I have no meat, so I cannot help you. I do not want it on credit, so why don't you let me have it? Asked Wusong. I have already told you that I have no meat, and only wine. I have nothing else. Just then a big man entered the inn followed by 4 villagers, and the innkeeper welcomed them with a smiling face, and asked them to be seated. Have you done what I told you? Asked the man. The innkeeper replied, The chickens and meat are already cooked and prepared for you. And where is the special wine I ordered? Asked the man. It is also here. The man and his followers sat down at a table facing Wusong. The innkeeper brought in a jar of wine, and removing the clay with which it was sealed, he poured out the wine into a jug. Wusong saw that the wine jar had been kept in store for mellowing a long time, and the flavor of it was wafted towards him. He felt a great desire to taste the liquor. Just then the innkeeper brought in a tray loaded with roasted chicken, and another tray of lean cooked meat. He placed these before the men, and began to serve them with the wine. Turning to the small quantity of vegetables on his own table, Wusong could not avoid being angry. Seeing such a big spread of food, and feeling very hungry, he brought his fist down on the table and called out, "Waiter! Here! Why you insult your guest?" "Reverend." "Do not worry," said the innkeeper, hurrying to him. "If you want more wine you need not make such a noise." Wusong glared at him, and shouted, "How unreasonable you are! Why don't you allow me to buy some of the wine and meat? I can pay for it." The wine and meat was sent here by this man himself, and they only come here to dine. But Wusong would not listen to this as he wanted something to eat, so he swore at the man, "Farts! Farts! You're giving me farts." The waiter replied, "Your manners are very rude seeing that you are a monk. Why do you talk about manners when I have already offered to pay for what I eat?" He then slapped the waiter's face, who staggered to one side. The man at the other table, seeing this, was angry. He saw that the waiter could not get up. He pointed at Wusong and said, "You are a damned monk, but you do not carry out your principles well. Why do you hit people in this way? A monk ought not to display temper in this way." "I hit him, it has damned nothing to do with you," replied Wusong. "I give you some good advice," said the man. "Why do you reply in this bellicose manner?" Now Wusong was highly excited, overturned the table, and stepping forward shouted, "What did you say?" The man laughed and said, "Do you want to fight with me, you stupid monk?" He beckoned with his hand. "You crook! Come here and talk with me." "Do you think I am afraid of you?" asked Wusong, and straightway went toward the door. The man stepped out of the door, followed by Wusong. When Wusong came outside, the man noticed that he was of big build and not to be despised. Wusong advanced in a fighting attitude. The man tried to kick at Wusong, who however was too quick, and avoiding the kick he seized hold of the man's hand and pulled him forward. He then pulled him sideways and pushed him down just as though he was a small boy. The man's companions were looking on at this, but did not dare to interfere, and stood there trembling. Wusong placed his foot on the man, and then hit him about 40 times with his fist in unimportant places. He then lifted him up, and threw him into the brook. The companions rushed into the water, and rescued him. They brought him to the bank, and then they all walked off along the road. The innkeeper was still holding his sore head in a room at the back. Wusong entered and said to himself, "Well, they have all gone, so I will now have a drink." He took the jug of wine, and had a good drink. He then seized the 2 chickens, and without using chopsticks ate them with his fingers. He had nearly finished all the food and wine in an hour, and being quite full he left the inn, and went on his way by the side of the brook. But there was now a very strong head wind, so that he found it difficult to walk against it. He struggled on about 2 li when he came to an earth wall where a yellow dog rushed out, and began barking at him. Wusong was partly drunk, and felt annoyed at the dog barking, so he took his sword from his belt and attempted to hit the dog with it. But the dog always escaped his blows, and pursuing it to the bank of the stream, Wusong struck another blow, missed his footing and fell into the water, not being able to get up. The dog stood still on the bank, barking at him, but he could not get on his legs again. It was winter time, and although the water was only about 2 feet deep, it was very cold. At last he struggled up, and stood with the water dripping from his clothes. His sword was lying in the water, and it seemed to be very bright and clear. He stooped down to pick it up, but fell into the water again, and could not get up. While he was tumbling there, a number of men came out of the house, and stood on the bank. With them was a very big man, wearing a felt cap, and a yellow silk jacket. In his hand was a stick, and about 10 men, who were with him, were also armed in the same way. When they saw Wusong, they cried out, "Here is the crook who attacked our young master, who has just gone to the inn with 30 men to capture him." Just then they heard whistles being blown, and the band of 30 men joined the others on the bank. A big man spoke to the man in the yellow silk jacket, "This is the very monk who attacked me." The man spoken to was his brother, and replied, "Arrest him, and bring him into our farmyard where we will punish him." The men seized Wusong and dragged him out of the stream, and went along. Now Wusong was really drunk and could not struggle. They took him into the yard of a big farmstead, which had high whitewashed walls surrounded by fir and willow trees. They stripped him of his clothes, and then beat him severely with a bundle of rattan canes. When they had beaten him about 5 blows, a man came on the scene, and asked, "Whom were you beating?" The brother explained and added, "We suspect that he is really not a monk. He is branded on his face with 2 lines of characters, which had been hidden by his hair. He is evidently an escaped convict. We will ask him where he comes from, and then send him under arrest to the officials." The younger brother interposed, "We won't ask any questions. He hurt me severely, and it will be at least a month before I can recover. It would be better to beat him to death, and then burn his body. Then I shall feel that I have had my revenge." He seized the bundle of canes to continue the beating, but the stranger interposed, saying, "Sir, please wait until I have had a look at him. He looks like a fine fellow." Now Wusong had heard all this, and understood it, but he did not utter a word, and kept his eyes closed. The stranger examined Wusong's back, and saw there the scars from the previous beating. "How strange. These stripes must be from a punishment he has recently received." He then went to the front, and lifting up Wusong's long hair, had a good look at his face. He exclaimed, "Is this not my younger brother Wusong?" Wusong now opened his eyes and replied, "Are you not my elder brother?" "Release him at once," said the stranger. "This is my younger brother." The brothers were surprised at this turn of events, and asked, "How can this fellow be a brother of yours?" The stranger replied, "Have I not told you many times about Wusong who killed a tiger on Jingyang Ridge? This is he. I do not understand yet how he has got into this situation." The brothers released Wusong at once, gave him his clothes, and then they all went into the hall. Wusong attempted to kneel down to give a kowtow, but the stranger stepped forward and prevented this, saying, "Younger brother, the wine is still upsetting you. Please sit down, and we will talk together." Wusong was much pleased at seeing this man, and as he still felt slightly tipsy, he asked for some cold water to wash his hands and face in, and also rinse his mouth. After this he felt better, and after saluting his friend he sat down. The man was no other than Song Jiang of Yunqing County. "I thought you were living with Squire Chai," said Wusong. "How is it that you are here? It seems like a dream to see you now." "After your leaving us," said Song Jiang, "I stayed with Squire Chai for about half a year. I did not know how affairs were at home, and as my father might be anxious on account of our long absence, I at last decided to send my brother Song Qing home. After this, a letter arrived from home stating that due to the good care of Inspectors Zhu and Lei there was no more trouble at my home, and only I myself was wanted. An official proclamation had been issued to all places urging my arrest. The case, however, was now almost forgotten. Old Kong had however often made inquiries about me at my home, and upon my brother's return, had found out where I was. He therefore sent for me from Squire Chai's home to this place. This is called Baihu Mountain, and this farmstead belongs to Old Kong. The man you fought with is Old Kong's second son. He is very hot-tempered, and has the nickname Fiery Star. His name is Kong Liang. The other man with the yellow silk jacket is Kong Ming, the eldest son of Old Kong, and has the nickname Restless Star. They were both very eager to learn fencing, so they asked me to be their teacher. I have been here for about 6 months. I would like to go to the Qingfeng fortress, and have been thinking of starting the last 2 days. While I was with Squire Chai, I heard about your killing the tiger on Jingyang Ridge, and that you became a drill instructor at Yanggu County, and that you killed Shimanqing there. But afterwards, I could not find out your whereabouts. How is it that you are now wearing a monk's dress? Wusong then told what had happened to him since leaving Squire Chai's home, and how he had killed so many people. How he had adopted the disguise of a monk's dress, and had fought with old Kong's son. When Kong Liang and Kong Ming heard the account of the adventures of Wusong, they both were surprised and kowtowed to him. Wusong at once raised them up and said, "It is my fault that I attacked you." The brothers replied, "We were at fault for not recognizing your eminence. We ask for your pardon. Now that you know me, I hope that you will help me in drawing my monk's certificate and letters, recovering all my baggage, swords, clothes, etc., said Wusong. Kong Ming replied, "I will attend to that, and see that you get them all back." We need not say how they all went to explain matters to old Kong, and were entertained by that gentleman. That evening Song Jiang invited Wusong to share his room, and during the night they talked about the affairs of the previous year. Wusong rose early the next morning, and after washing his face and mouth went into the hall for his breakfast. Kong Ming was there, and dined with Wusong. Kong Liang was also there, and although he was not recovered from his pain, yet he waited upon Wusong. Old Kong gave orders for a pig and goat to be killed, and prepared a feast. That day many of the relatives of the family, and also the neighbors, visited and paid respects to Wusong. That evening after the feast Song Jiang asked Wusong where he intended to find refuge. Wusong explained that he had a letter from Zhang Qing introducing him to Luda at the Lianglong mountain, and that he wished to join the brigands there. Song Jiang thought that was all right. He said, "I have today received a letter from Huarong, commander of Qingfeng Fortress, stating that he knew that I had killed Yen Poxi, and urging me to seek refuge at his town. This place is not far from Qingfeng Fortress, and I am thinking of going there. But as the weather has been trying these few days, I have not set out on the journey. How would it be if we went there together?" Wusong replied, "I am afraid that it would not do for us to live there because as you know I am a convicted criminal. I must avoid trouble by joining the brigands at the Lianglong mountain. Moreover, as I am now a monk it would not look well for you to travel in my company. It would only arouse suspicions, and you might also get involved. We shall be true to each other till death shall separate us, but I should not like to get you into trouble with the commander of Qingfeng Fortress. I had better go by myself to the Lianglong mountain. If heaven takes pity on me I may escape death, and if I am afterwards given an official post, then we may be reunited." "As you have those ideas," said Song Jiang, "you will eventually return to the emperor's court, and heaven will watch over you. I will not attempt to dissuade you, but we can spend a few days here in each other's company." These two friends stayed about 10 days at Old Kong's farmstead. At the end of that period, however, Old Kong was unwilling to let them go, so they stayed about 3 days more. Then as they were decided to go, Old Kong prepared a feast. He gave Wusong a new suit of monk's clothes, and also 50 taels of silver. He also presented Song Jiang with the same, but as the latter refused to accept them, Old Kong put them in his baggage. Upon their departure Old Kong sent servants to carry their baggage for some distance, and both Kong Ming and Kong Liang also accompanied them for about 7 li on their way. Song Jiang at last asked the two brothers to come no further, but return home. This they did, and the servant also returned. Wusong and Song Jiang traveled together, and the following day, when they had gone about 20 li, they came to a market town called Ruilong, where the road divided. So Song Jiang asked a man, "We are going to the Lianglong mountain, and also Qingfeng Fort. Which of these roads must we take?" The man replied that the western road would lead to the Lianglong mountain, while the eastern road lead to Qingfeng Fort. "Young brother," said Song Jiang, "we must separate here, but before we go let us take a parting cup of wine." "I will come with you for a day's journey on your road," said Wusong, "and then come back here." "That will not do," said Song Jiang. "There is an ancient saying, accompany a person 300 li, and yet there is bound to be a parting at last. You had better go your own way from here. When you become a brigand, try avoid drinking too much wine. I hope you will urge and advise Luda to surrender to the emperor's official, if there is such an opportunity. Later on, if you are sent to the frontier, you can accomplish meritorious deeds for the emperor, and thus get your wife and children rewarded by heritage. You can get a good name, and have your actions recorded in history, and so your life would not be lived in vain. I have no ability, and although I am loyal, there is no hope of promotion for me. You are a brave hero, and can do great things yet, but please do not forget me. They then went into an inn and drank a parting cup. They proceeded to the place where the road divided, and there they took leave of each other. Song Jiang could not avoid weeping when they parted. He again asked Wusong not to forget what he had just said, avoid drinking too much wine. Song Jiang traveled along the eastern road, and within a few days, he approached the Qingfeng mountain. It was odd-looking, covered with dense forest. He enjoyed the scenery very much, and was so engrossed that he did not even inquire about a resting place. But when evening was drawing nigh, he began to feel anxious and thought, if it were summer, I could sleep in the forest, but as it is now midwinter, the nights are exceedingly cold, and I must find some shelter. Moreover, here there will be wild animals, poisonous snakes, and tigers, so that I shall be in danger of death. He continued on his way, but after about 2 hours more, it was so dark that he could not see the road, and soon he fell into a trap which caused a bell to ring. Very soon about 15 men came on the scene, and arrested him. They took his halberd and bundle, lit a torch, and took Song Jiang up the mountain to their stronghold. Looking round, he saw that the place was protected by a wooden fence, with a large straw shed in the middle. Inside the shed were 3 chairs covered with tiger skin. On all sides were smaller straw sheds. The soldiers tied him up to a post. Several soldiers in the big hut called out, "Our chief is asleep so that you cannot see him just now. When he awakes, we can take this fellow's liver and heart, and make an excellent soup. We shall soon have some fresh meat." Song Jiang thought, I am a most unfortunate fellow. I killed a girl, and am now in this awkward predicament. But who would have expected me to die in such a place as this? The soldiers now began to light the lamps. Song Jiang was exceedingly cold, and sighed at his bad fate. About midnight 3 or 4 soldiers came from behind the big shed and said, "Our chief has now got up." They went to the lamps and trimmed the candles. The chief soon came, and Song Jiang stealthily looked at him. His hair was dressed in a knob on the top of his head, and was covered in a red silk turban. His gown was of bright red silk. He sat down in one of the chairs covered with a tiger skin. His name was Yan Shun, and his nickname was Elegant Tiger. His family was at Laizhou in Shandong province. Previously he had been a horse dealer, but had lost all his money, and so had become a bandit. "Where did you capture this fellow?" he asked. The soldiers told him how this had happened. "That is good," said Yan Shun. "Go and tell the other 2 chiefs to come here, and partake of this fellow." A soldier went, and in a short time the 2 chiefs arrived. One of them was a dwarf, but had very brilliant eyes. His name was Wang Ying, and his nickname was Stunted Tiger. He was a Lianghuai man, and had previously been a porter. He had once been arrested and imprisoned because he had killed a passenger on the road, and robbed him of his property. But later he had escaped from the jail. He had joined Yan Shun at the Qingfeng mountain, and taken to brigandage. The other chief had a white face, with a beard and mustache. He was broad-shouldered but rather lanky. He wore a brown silk turban, and had a distinguished appearance. He was a Suzhou man. His name was Jing Tianshou, and his nickname was White-Faced Squire. Previously he had been a silversmith, and from his youth had been skillful with the cudgels, and had always been fond of strolling about. Once he had happened to meet Wang Ying, the Stunted Tiger, and they had fought for about 50 bouts without either being victorious. Yan Shun had been watching this fight, and had admired Zheng's skill, so he invited him to come and join them as brigands. The 3 chiefs sat down, and Stunted Tiger spoke, "Be quick, and let us have this fellow's liver made into sour soup for us 3. A soldier brought a large bowl of water, and placed it in front of Song Jiang. Another soldier rolled up his sleeves, and took a knife for cutting out the heart. The first named soldier opened Song Jiang's dress and poured cold water over his bosom. The water was used to force the hot blood from the heart and make the heart and liver tender when taken out. The cold water was splashed in Song Jiang's face so that he gasped and cried out, "What a pity that Song Jiang should die like this." When Yin Shun heard the name Song Jiang, he at once told the soldier to stop splashing the water on the man. He then asked, "What did that man say?" When the soldier repeated it, Yin Shun got up and asked, "Do you know Song Jiang?" "I am Song Jiang." "Which Song Jiang do you mean?" asked Yin Shun. "I am Song Jiang who was a clerk in the Yamen at Yunqing County." "Are you the Song Jiang sometimes called Welcome Rain who killed Yin Poxy and then escaped?" "How do you know that?" asked Song Jiang. "I certainly am that person." Yin Shun was astonished. He took the knife from the soldier and cut the ropes binding Song Jiang. He then took the bright red silk gown he was wearing and put it on Song Jiang. He lifted him up and seated him in his own chair. He then summoned the other two chiefs, and they all three went down on their knees and kowtowed to Song Jiang. Song Jiang arose and also gave them a kowtow. He asked, "Why have you gentlemen not killed me? Why do you pay such respects to me?" "I feel that I ought to gouge out my own eyes because they failed to recognize you," said Yin Shun. "I did not even ask you any questions so that I was almost on the point of killing a hero. If heaven had not luckily moved you to say your name, we should not have found out who you are. I have acted as a brigand for 10 years, and during my travels I have heard that you distributed money in good cause and assisted people in distress. Only I have been so unfortunate that I could not pay you the respects earlier. Now I am contented that heaven has arranged for us to meet today. What virtuous acts have I done that you should now regard me in this manner?" asked Song Jiang. "Elder brother, you befriend great heroes," said Yin Shun. "Your name resounds in all parts, and where is the man who would not respect you? Just now matters at Liangshan Marsh are prospering, and that is known in all quarters. It has been said that all the prosperity there has been due to your assistance. I did not expect you to turn up at this spot." Song Jiang then told all the details of his adventures with Chao Gai, his murdering of Yen Poxy, and how he was now on his way to the Qingfeng mountain to find Huarong. All the chiefs were very glad to hear all this, and gave Song Jiang clothes to put on. They had a sheep and a pig killed, and that night they entertained Song Jiang to a feast. The next day Song told them all about Wusong, and what that brave hero had done. The chiefs felt much regret that Wusong had gone to somewhere else without calling at their place. It was the custom in Shandong province to visit the family graves during the first 10 days of the last month of the year. One day a soldier reported that in the valley below there was a sedan chair followed by about 8 men, who were carrying 2 boxes, and they were evidently going to a grave to offer sacrifices. Stunted Tiger was a lecher, and when he heard this report, he at once assumed that there might be a woman in the sedan chair. He summoned about 50 soldiers to follow him down the mountain. Song Jiang and Yin Shun were opposed to this expedition, but could not stop it. The bandits seized their weapons, and striking a gong they set off down the mountain. The other 3 were left behind, drinking wine. About 3 hours later, a scout reported to Yin Shun that Stunted Tiger had attacked the 8 soldiers who had all run away, leaving the sedan chair in which was a woman. There were only incense sticks in the silver box. "Where has the woman been taken to?" asked Yin Shun. "Stunted Tiger has taken her into his own room," was the reply. Yin Shun laughed. "Then our brother Wanging must be lustful, which is not creditable to a hero," said Song Jiang. "He is very brave on all occasions," said Yin Shun, "but he has just that one fault." "Let us go, and give him some good advice," said Song Jiang. So they all 3 went to Stunted Tiger's quarters, and upon pushing open the door they saw that he was embracing a woman, and was making solicitations. When he saw his friends he pushed the woman away from him, and asked them to be seated. "Lady, what family do you belong to?" asked Song Jiang. "What urgent business have you that brings you to this place?" The woman blushed and gave 3 feminine salutes. I am of the family of the commander of Qingfeng Fortress. My mother is dead, so I seized this opportunity to visit her grave and offer sacrifice to her spirit. I would not think of coming here on an idle trip. I beg you to save my life. Song Jiang was startled on hearing this and thought, I was going to seek refuge with Colonel Huarong, the commander of Qingfeng Fortress, and this woman perhaps is his wife. Why should I not save her? So he again asked, if you are the wife of Huarong, how is it that he did not accompany you to the grave? I will tell you, said the woman. I am not his wife. But just now you said you were the wife of the magistrate, said Song Jiang. You do not understand, said the woman. At Qingfeng Fortress there are now 2 chiefs, one military and the other civil. The military commander is Colonel Huarong. The civil magistrate is Lu Gao, who is my husband. Song Jiang thought, her husband is a fellow officer of Huarong. If I do not help her, it will not look well for me to go and see my friend Huarong. He turned to Stunted Tiger and said, I have something to say to you, but I do not know whether you will like it or not. Stunted Tiger said, Elder brother, please say what you have to say. If a hero commits debauchery, everybody is ashamed of him, said Song Jiang. This woman says she is the wife of an official appointed by the imperial court. What do you think if you take into account my friendly advice and the rules of common decency, and let her go to rejoin her husband? Brother, listen to me, said Stunted Tiger, I have not a wife to accompany me at the stronghold. Moreover, in the present generation, many wives are monopolized by one person. Better leave this matter alone, and let me have this woman. Song Jiang knelt down and kowtowed. He said, Sir, if you want a wife, I will look round and find you a very good one. I will endow her with wedding presents, and you can marry her. But this woman is the wife of an official, who is a comrade of my friend, so we must have some consideration of his feelings, and let this woman go. Yan Shun and Jing Tianqiu both raised Song Jiang up and said, Elder brother, please get up. This matter will be easily arranged. Song Jiang said, Thank you for not standing in the way of this being done. Yan Shun saw that Song Jiang was determined, so without asking Stunted Tiger whether he agreed or not, he ordered the captive sedan chair bearers to take the woman away at once. The woman, upon hearing this order, saluted Song Jiang and expressed her thanks many times. Lady, said Song Jiang, do not thank me. I am not a leader at this stronghold, but merely a guest from Yunqing County. The woman again expressed her thanks, and then entering the sedan chair, she was quickly borne down the mountain by the 2 bearers whose lives had been spared. They almost flew down the mountain as though they had very many legs. Stunted Tiger was disappointed and also ashamed. Song Jiang took him to the front hall, telling him not to worry. I will certainly get you a wife later on, and then you will be able to enjoy yourself. You can depend upon me keeping my promise. Upon this both Yan Shun and Jing Tianqiu laughed. Stunted Tiger had been balked of his prey by the rules of decorum, but although he was angry, he dared not say a word. The soldiers reported the seizure of his wife to the magistrate Lu Gao. He was very angry and abused them for their dereliction of duty. He had them beaten as punishment. They stated that they were outnumbered, as there were about 40 of the bandits. Nonsense, said the magistrate. If you do not now go and recapture my wife, I will have you all put in prison. The men had no escape, so they asked other soldiers to join them, and altogether about 80 soldiers started off to rescue the magistrate's wife. They had not gone half the distance on the return journey when they met the 2 bearers carrying the sedan chair with the lady inside. How did you get away from the mountain? Asked they. Those fellows who seized me, said the lady, were quite upset when I told them that I am the wife of Magistrate Lu, and they at once ordered the chair bearers to take me down the mountain again. The soldiers replied, Lady, we pray you to say that we rescued you, and so save us from further punishments. I know how to speak to the magistrate, she said. They all saluted and expressed their thanks. They all escorted the chair and went along. But the chair-bearers still walked very quickly, so the soldiers asked them, "In ordinary days you walked like ducks or geese, so how is it you hurry so much now?" "We really cannot walk fast," said the chair-bearers, "but we are afraid that those terrible fellows will catch us up and give us a beating." The escort laughed and said, "Have you seen a demon? Where are the men following you?" The chair-bearers now dared to look round, and seeing nobody pursuing them, they exclaimed, "Ayaya! We have had no time to look behind before, because our heels were kicking our backs as we raced along." When they reached the yamen, the magistrate was very much pleased to see his wife again, and asked her who had rescued her. "When those bandits seized me they made vile solicitations, but I did not listen to them, and they were going to kill me. When they heard, however, that I was your wife, they were immediately startled and saluted me. When all these soldiers arrived on the scene, they rescued me and brought me back." When the magistrate heard this, he ordered 10 jugs of wine and a roasted pig to be given to the soldiers as a reward for their efforts. After the woman had left the mountain, Song Jiang stayed there about 10 days, and then expressed his desire to visit Colonel Huarong. The 3 chiefs of the bandits did not want him to go, but at last they prepared a feast and made him presents of much silver. Song Jiang bid them goodbye. The 3 chiefs accompanied him down the mountain for about 7 li, where they drank the parting cups of wine, and before separating they urged Song Jiang to come and visit them again on the mountain when he left the magistrate's protection. This, Song Jiang promised to do. If the author were living at that time, he would not have allowed Song Jiang to depart and face death again in the Huarong's service. Why should people look for trouble which is not like changing clouds?